The soft hum of computers filled the quiet night shift at the Global Space Observatory. James Miller rubbed his tired eyes, leaning back in his chair as he watched the endless stream of data flow across his screens. 20 years of watching the stars had taught him patience, but tonight felt different. The air seemed charged with an odd electricity that made the hair on his neck stand up. A sharp beep cut through the silence. James sat up straight, his eyes scanning the incoming signal. At first he thought it was just another piece of space debris, but the pattern was too regular, too purposeful. He ran it through the filters again, his heart beginning to race as the computer confirmed what he was seeing. "Tom," he called out to his colleague monitoring the other station. "Can you verify something for me?" His voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he transferred the data to Tom's screen. The younger scientist's eyes widened as he processed the information. "That's not possible," Tom whispered, fingers flying across his keyboard. The signals coming from multiple points, all moving in perfect formation. He looked up at James, face pale in the blue light of the monitors. "These are ships, aren't they?" James nodded slowly, already reaching for the red phone that connected directly to the observatory's director. "And they're heading straight for our solar system." Within an hour, the quiet observatory had transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Scientists pored over the data while military officials crowded around screens, their faces grim. The ships weren't trying to hide. They were broadcasting their presence openly, moving at a steady pace that would bring them to Earth's orbit in exactly 2 weeks. News spread quickly through government channels. James watched on the break room TV as world leaders issued careful statements, trying to prevent panic while preparing their populations for the reality that humanity was not alone. The stock market crashed, then rallied, then crashed again. Religious leaders called for calm while doomsday preppers declared vindication. But something about this didn't fit the pattern of invasion stories James had grown up with. He stayed at his post, analyzing every bit of data from the approaching fleet. The ship's movement was almost leisurely, nothing like the aggressive approach you'd expect from conquerors. They were broadcasting continuously, their signals clear and strong, almost like they wanted to be noticed. "Look at this," James called Tom over again, pointing to a new data set. "The energy readings from their engines. They're not consistent." He pulled up a graph showing the power fluctuations. "See these spikes? It's like they're compensating for something. These ships have been damaged and repaired." Tom frowned at the screen. "Could be from meteoroids or space debris. The damage patterns are too widespread, too similar across different ships." James shook his head. "Whatever did this, it was deliberate. And look here." He switched to another screen showing the fleet's trajectory. "They've adjusted course 6 times since we spotted them, each time after scanning the surrounding space. They're watching for something." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The United Nations convened an emergency session, while the world's military forces were placed on high alert. James barely left his post, sleeping on a cot in the observatory's break room. He couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was missing something important about these visitors. On the 7th day, the aliens made their first direct communication attempt. The message came through all frequencies, transmitted in perfect English and several other Earth languages. Its content stunned everyone who read it. "Greetings, people of Earth. We, the collective, hereby formally request to initiate proceedings for planetary acquisition and integration. We assure you this process will be conducted according to all standard protocols, with full compensation as detailed in Galactic Code Section 7.3. We await your response and look forward to a peaceful transfer of planetary stewardship." James stared at the message on his screen, reading it over and over. After 20 years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, he'd finally found it. But instead of the dramatic invasion or peaceful first contact he'd imagined, he was looking at what appeared to be an alien real estate offer. Something was very wrong here, and he intended to find out what. The world held its breath as the alien ships drew closer. In his small office at the Global Space Observatory, James studied the latest message from the collective. Something about their formal, almost nervous tone bothered him. It reminded him of his cousin, a real estate agent, trying to rush through a bad property sale. "They're hiding something," he told Tom, who was bringing him his third coffee of the morning. "Look at how they keep mentioning safety protocols and compensation. It's like they're trying too hard to convince us everything's fine." Tom placed the coffee on the desk, careful to avoid the scattered papers covered in calculations. "Maybe that's just how their species communicates," he suggested, but his voice held out. A knock on the door interrupted them. Anna Thompson from the communications team stepped in, her face showing excitement. "You need to see this," she said, placing her tablet on James's desk. "We've analyzed all their messages. There's a pattern in their background frequencies." The tablet showed a complex wave pattern. Anna pointed to specific peaks and valleys in the data. "See these? They're sending out regular pulses, but not to us. These signals are aimed at deep space, like they're checking something. And look at the timing. Every 6 hours, exactly when their ships change course." James leaned forward, his tired eyes suddenly alert. "They're scanning for something. But what?" The next day, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. On screens worldwide, delegates gathered to discuss the collective's request. The alien ships now hung in high orbit, visible as bright points of light in the night sky. The collective's message played again in the assembly hall. "We assure Earth's population that this transfer will be beneficial to all parties. Our advanced technology and knowledge will be shared as part of the standard integration package. We simply require formal acceptance of our offer within the next planetary rotation." "They sound desperate," Anna whispered to James as they watched from the observatory's conference room. They had been called in as technical advisors, like they're running out of time. James nodded, his mind racing. "Pull up the deep space scans from the last week," he said suddenly. "Not of their ships. I want to see what they're looking at." Working together, they mapped out the areas the collective kept scanning. A pattern emerged. They were watching a specific sector of space, one that seemed to be following them. The UN Assembly was still debating when James made his move. He approached the main communication terminal, and before anyone could stop him, sent a message to the collective. "What are you running from?" The response was immediate. The assembly fell silent as the alien's reply appeared on the main screen. "Request denied. This is a standard planetary acquisition procedure. No external factors are involved." But something had changed. The alien's usually precise language was rushed, almost frantic. The alien ship landed at sunset. It was smaller than expected, about the size of a bus, and made almost no sound as it touched down on the observatory's backlot. James watched through the reinforced windows, standing between Anna and Tom. Armed guards lined the walls, their weapons ready but lowered. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Light spilled out, and in it stood a figure that made James blink twice to be sure he was seeing correctly. The alien looked almost human, except for its slightly blue-tinted skin and large, dark eyes. It wore what appeared to be a formal suit, complete with something like a tie. "I am first speaker," it said in perfect English, though its mouth didn't move quite right with the words. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Its hands, four-fingered and delicate, kept adjusting its suit in what James recognized as a nervous gesture. As they walked to the conference room, James noticed more signs of the alien's stress. First speaker's eyes kept darting to the windows, checking the darkening sky. It also carried a small device that beeped softly every few minutes, making the alien twitch each time. "Before we begin," first speaker said once they were seated, "I must verify your planet's defensive capabilities." It placed a holographic projector on the table, showing images of Earth's military forces, satellite systems, and what appeared to be energy readings from the planet itself. Anna leaned forward, studying the projections. "These readings," she said, pointing to a particular set of data, "they're from your ship's scans of Earth." First speaker nodded, the movement slightly too quick to seem natural. The emergency alarms blared through the observatory as screens lit up with warnings. The massive object first speaker had detected was moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. James watched in horror as the readings showed it crossing the distance from Pluto to Jupiter in mere hours. First speaker's device now beeped constantly. "We must prepare," the alien said, its formal manner completely gone. The hunters rarely leave survivors to tell of their appearance, but the few who have seen them and lived. It stopped, hands shaking, as it worked its holographic controls. A new image appeared above the table. At first, James thought he was looking at a cloud of dark smoke. Then he realized the cloud was moving with purpose, shifting and flowing like liquid shadow. Within it, shapes moved that hurt his eyes to look at, things that seemed to break the rules of normal space. "They're not solid," Anna asked, her scientific mind trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "They're not anything our sciences can properly explain," first speaker replied. "They exist partly in spaces we cannot see or understand. What you're looking at is only the part of them that touches normal space." The observatory's instruments tracked the hunters' approach. They would reach Earth in less than a day. Military leaders around the world scrambled forces, but first speaker shook its head at their efforts. "Weapons are useless," it said. "They pass through physical barriers like they don't exist. They consume energy weapons, growing stronger. We tried everything. Nothing worked." Tom, who had been quiet for a long time, suddenly spoke up. "But they won't come here. You said they avoid Earth." "Why?" First speaker turned its large eyes to him. "We don't know. Our instruments show nothing special about your planet. Your technology is primitive compared to many worlds they've destroyed. Yet they stay away. We've observed them change course to avoid even coming close to your solar system." James walked to the main computer terminal, his mind racing. "Show me the hunter's approach pattern again," he said. The screen displayed the dark masses' movement through the solar system. "Look at this. They're not just staying away from Earth. They're keeping their distance from all our space missions, even the old satellites and probes." "Impossible," first speaker whispered, moving closer to see. "Those machines are far too simple to pose any threat to them." Anna joined them at the screen, her eyes widening. "It's not the machines," she said slowly. "It's what's on them. Every probe, every spacecraft we've ever sent out carries the same thing: human bacteria. Our germs." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. James pulled up archived files of humanity's early space programs. "We never fully sterilized our space equipment," he explained to first speaker. "Scientists always worried we might accidentally contaminate other worlds with Earth bacteria. Every human mission, every probe we've sent into space, carried thousands of microorganisms with it." First speaker's device beeped again, but the alien barely seemed to notice. It was staring at the screen, its expression showing something like awe. "Your bacteria, your microscopic life forms, they're what the hunters fear." "It makes sense," Anna said excitedly. "You said the hunters exist partly in spaces we can't see or understand. Maybe our bacteria can affect those spaces in ways we never imagined. We've evolved alongside these microorganisms for millions of years. They're part of us, but to something that's never encountered them before." The main screen flashed red. The hunters had reached Mars' orbit, but then something strange happened. The dark mass stopped. For several minutes it hung there, shifting and swirling. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, it began to move away from Earth. First speaker watched in amazement. "They're retreating," it said, its voice filled with disbelief. "In all our records, they have never retreated. Not once." James looked at the alien ships in orbit, then back at the fleeing hunters. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "it seems humanity just discovered its first galactic superpower. We're not as primitive as everyone thought. We're just advanced in a way nobody expected." The days following the hunters' retreat were filled with non-stop activity at the observatory. Scientists from around the world arrived to study the data, while more alien ships appeared in orbit each day. James barely slept, spending every waking moment working with Anna to understand exactly what made Earth's bacteria so special. "Look at this," Anna called out one morning, waving James over to her microscope. She had been studying samples of common human bacteria alongside similar samples from first speakers' people. "Their bacterial cells are too perfect, too organized. Ours are messy, always changing, always adapting." James peered through the microscope. The alien bacteria looked almost artificial compared to Earth's chaotic, ever-evolving microorganisms. They engineered their bacteria, he realized. They controlled it, made it clean and orderly. First speaker stood nearby, watching them work. "Of course we did," it said. "All advanced civilizations learn to control their microscopic life forms. It's a sign of progress." The alien paused, tilting its head. "Isn't it?" "No," Tom said, walking in with a fresh set of data prints. "That's what everyone got wrong. By controlling and cleaning up their bacterial life, they made themselves vulnerable. Earth is strong because we're messy. We're still connected to billions of years of bacterial evolution." More tests proved they were right. Earth's bacteria had evolved alongside countless species through mass extinctions and environmental changes. They could survive almost anywhere, adapt to any condition. And somehow this chaotic, uncontrolled evolution had created something that could affect even the strange spaces where the hunters existed. One evening, as James studied the latest results, Anna burst into the lab. "We did it," she shouted, waving a tablet. "We finally figured out why the hunters can't handle our bacteria. It's not just one thing. It's everything about them. The way they mutate, how they interact with each other, even the tiny electrical charges they generate. Together, it creates a kind of biological static that disrupts the hunter's ability to exist in our space." First speakers' people were amazed. They had spent generations trying to perfect their worlds, to control every aspect of life down to the smallest cell. They never imagined that Earth's messy, seemingly primitive approach to evolution would create the ultimate defense against the galaxy's greatest threat. James worked with the alien scientists to understand more. They discovered that each human carried billions of these protective bacteria. Every breath released thousands of them into the air. Every human space mission had spread them through the solar system. Earth was effectively surrounded by an invisible shield of microscopic life that the hunters couldn't penetrate. "Your people," first speaker said one day, watching James work, "you never tried to control everything. You let life grow wild and free. You evolved alongside it instead of trying to master it." The alien's voice held a mix of wonder and regret. "We thought we were advancing by controlling everything. Instead, we were making ourselves weaker." The alien ships in orbit began changing their designs. They created special chambers that could host Earth's bacteria safely, turning them into living shields against the hunters. Other alien species arrived, seeking to learn Earth's primitive but powerful biological secrets. In his quiet moments, James thought about how strange it all was. Humanity had spent centuries looking up at the stars, dreaming of advanced alien civilizations that would teach them the secrets of the universe. Instead, they discovered that humanity's greatest strength was something they'd had all along: the tiny, chaotic, ever-changing life forms that had evolved with them since the beginning. One night, as he watched more alien ships arrive through the observatory's telescope, Anna joined him. "Pretty amazing, isn't it?" she said. "All this time we thought we needed to become more advanced, more controlled, more perfect. Turns out, being a little messy and wild was exactly what the galaxy needed." James smiled, thinking of the billions of tiny allies that had protected Earth without anyone even knowing it. "Sometimes," he said, "the best defense isn't a high-tech shield or a powerful weapon. Sometimes it's just being exactly what you are, imperfections and all." The Global Space Observatory had changed beyond recognition in the past month. What was once a quiet research facility now buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked side by side. The parking lot had been converted into a landing zone for small alien ships, and new buildings sprouted up around the original structure like mushrooms after rain. James walked through the new bio-research wing, where human scientists worked with alien experts to understand how to best use Earth's bacterial defense. The walls were lined with special containers glowing with soft blue light, each holding carefully cultivated samples of human bacterial colonies. "The first defense system is ready," Anna told him, pointing to a screen showing a large alien ship in orbit. "They've installed living chambers filled with Earth bacteria throughout their hull. Early tests show it creates a field that extends almost a mile around the ship." Tom rushed in, holding his tablet. "You need to see this," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "The Russians just tested the new bio-shield on one of their old space stations. They released a controlled cloud of our bacteria around it. The field is stable and growing." First speakers stood nearby, watching the test results with other alien officials. Their formal suits were gone now, replaced by more practical work clothes. "Your bacteria adapt faster than we imagined possible," it said. "They're already evolving to survive better in space. No other life forms we know of can change so quickly." The aliens had started calling Earth's bacteria star seeds, amazed at how these tiny organisms could survive the harsh conditions of space. They had never seen life forms so resilient, so determined to exist no matter where they ended up. A loud alarm suddenly rang through the facility. But this wasn't the panic of a month ago. This was different. 3 short beeps followed by a long one. "The test alert." "Right on schedule," Anna said, leading everyone to the main control room. The massive screen showed a small alien scout ship moving to the edge of the solar system. They were about to test how far the bacterial shield could extend. The room fell silent as the ship reached its position. This was the furthest any protected ship had gone since they discovered why the hunters avoided Earth. The scout ship's crew were volunteers from first speaker's people, protected by human bacteria carefully cultured in their ship's new biological shield system. "Scout ship reporting normal readings," a voice called out. "No sign of hunter activity. Shield holding steady." The tension in the room began to ease. "Wait, detecting movement at the edge of our range. Something big." Everyone held their breath. The scout ship's cameras showed a familiar dark mass forming in the distance. The hunters had returned. But this time, they were ready. "Shield power at maximum," the scout ship reported. "Hunter mass approaching. Stopping at 50,000 kilometers. They're not coming any closer." Cheers erupted in the control room. The bacterial shield was working even at that distance from Earth. First speaker's people had tears in their large eyes. For the first time since the hunters appeared, they had a real defense. "We're receiving signals from 17 more species," Tom announced, checking the incoming data. "They all want to join the Earth Defense Alliance. They're offering technology, resources, anything we need to help develop the bacterial shield system." James watched as more data poured in from the scout ship. They had done it. Earth's primitive biology had become the foundation for a new kind of space defense. Humanity's first gift to the galaxy wasn't advanced technology or powerful weapons. It was the very thing that made them seem primitive to others. "You know what this means," Anna said, standing beside him. "Everything's going to change now. Earth isn't just some backwater planet anymore. We're going to be the center of the biggest alliance in the galaxy." James nodded, watching as first speaker organized teams to begin production of more shield systems. "And all because we never tried to perfect our biology," he said. "Sometimes the best path forward isn't to leave your past behind, but to bring it with you into the future." 5 years had passed since the day the collective first appeared in Earth's sky. The view from the observatory's new top floor showed how much had changed. The facility now stretched for miles, a sprawling complex of research buildings, landing pads, and living quarters. Ships of different shapes and sizes moved through the sky, their hulls glowing with the soft blue light of bacterial shields. James stood at the window, drinking his morning coffee. His hair had more gray now, but his eyes still held the same curiosity that helped him solve the mystery of the aliens' arrival. Below him, human and alien children played together in the community park. The sight always made him smile. The next generation was growing up in a very different world. "The latest reports are in," Anna said, walking in with her tablet. She had just returned from a 3-month mission on one of the Joint Defense Stations. The bacterial shield network now covers 30% of known space. No hunter activity reported in any protected sector for the past 8 months. Tom joined them, carrying fresh data from the deep space monitoring stations. He now led the team tracking hunter movements across the galaxy. "They're retreating to the outer edges," he said. "Every time we expand the shield network, they pull back further. Some of our observers think they're starting to break apart into smaller groups." First speaker, who now served as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Alliance, entered the room. The alien looked different now, more relaxed, comfortable in simple Earth-style clothing. "The Council has approved the next phase," it announced. "We're ready to begin clearing the trading routes between major systems." The plan was working better than anyone had imagined. Earth's bacteria, originally seen as a sign of their primitive development, had become the foundation of a new era in space travel. The bacterial shields not only protected against the hunters, but had unexpected benefits. They helped clean space debris, reduced radiation damage to ships, and even helped process cosmic energy into usable power. "We received another message from the Rigel system," Anna said, checking her notes. "They're the 43rd species to request joining the Alliance this month. Their scientists are especially interested in studying Earth's oceans. They say our marine bacteria might be even more effective than what we're currently using." James remembered how, just 5 years ago, these same alien species had seen Earth as a primitive backwater. Now they sent their best scientists to learn from humanity's primitive biological systems. Every day, they discovered new ways that Earth's natural processes could solve problems that advanced technology had failed to fix. The observation deck filled with more people as the daily briefing began. Humans in lab coats worked alongside aliens of various species, all focused on expanding and improving the bacterial shield network. On the main screen, a map showed the protected zones of space glowing with a soft blue light, spreading out from Earth like ripples in a pond. "We're getting some interesting data from the outer colonies," Tom said, pulling up new charts. "The bacterial shields aren't just protecting ships anymore. They're actually starting to change some of the empty space around them, creating something new. We're not sure what it is yet, but it's like the bacteria are building some kind of living network between the stars." First speaker nodded. "My people have a saying now. The greatest wisdom can come from the simplest sources. We spent thousands of years trying to control and perfect everything. You taught us that sometimes the best path is to work with nature, not against it." James looked out at the busy facility that had grown from his quiet observatory. Humanity had dreamed of becoming an advanced civilization, imagining that progress meant making everything cleaner, more controlled, more perfect. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that their connection to nature's chaos, to the endless dance of evolution and adaptation, was their greatest strength. "You know what's funny?" he said to Anna and Tom. "They came here thinking they needed to take over Earth to save themselves. Instead, they learned to see the universe the way we do, as a place where even the smallest, messiest forms of life have value. Maybe that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy, not just our bacteria, but our way of seeing things." The sun set over the changed Earth, its light reflecting off the ships above. In the growing darkness, the bacterial shields created a gentle blue glow in the sky, a constant reminder that humanity's greatest strength had been within them all along, in the billions of tiny allies that had evolved alongside them since the beginning of life itself.